it was really around the challenge that we saw in the legislation in particular, which was effectively, forcing us into a position where it would be almost impossible for us to operate, where links, or the kind of sharing of links, which is, I would say, on for Facebook, and that's different for other technology platforms. We don't go and take content. Now, actually, publishers, large and small, choose to post onto Facebook. So it's always their decision how and when they post content. And of course, that drives a considerable audience for free. And actually, that basis was being was deeply challenged by the proposed legislation. And what we're really pleased to be is in a position where we're able to re-establish kind of the provision of views. I want to be really clear: it was not a decision we wanted to take at all, but we really didn't feel we had a choice at that moment. Now everybody's been at the negotiating and conversation table, and it's great that we're able to get in a position where we can move forward. In answer directly to do I think that can happen in the UK? The UK's taken quite a different approach in this. And it's important to say that nobody disagrees with this, with the goal, which is, how do we find the ways of protecting and valuing and sustaining journalism, quality journalism in all its forms? And by all its forms, I mean national, and particularly I mean local. And by all its forms, I mean established organizations, but also newer organizations, perhaps from voices that aren't heard as often as other voices have been. So in the UK, you'd have seen that just last month, we launched what's called Facebook News, which is an entire dedicated part of the Facebook app, wholly about news. And the articles and pieces from the publishers that choose to post in there, there is a commercial relationship where Facebook pays, for them to be able to, Facebook pays for that content that was in there, that exists within Facebook News. And I'm really pleased. I mean, it launched originally in the US. It's proven really good for people, really good for publishers, and really good for journalism. I really do believe that there can be a strong coexistence amongst publishers and platforms, particularly if everybody is encouraging the level of innovation that's taking place right now. The immediate moment when we saw the pandemic arrive, any company is going to be going, okay, what can we do? How can we help people? How can we ensure our employees are safe and well and able to operate? And how can we all contribute to what is clearly a global challenge in the UK? So that was almost the mindset we set out with kind of 9 or 10 months ago. Like, we want to be able to look back in a year's time to say, did we do everything we could do? And I guess, time will tell whether we can answer that question with a kind of resounding yes. But certainly the kind of most important areas for us at Facebook have been, how can we make sure people see credible and accurate information? So that means, removing where there is information on Facebook where that would challenge and create kind of real world harm. So we've taken down over 16 million pieces of content where people are having kind of conversations around, I guess, less immediate harm, but nevertheless inaccurate misinformation. So we've reduced the exposure to over 150 million pieces of that content. And we've ensured that people are seeing credible and authoritative sources. So that's, directed 10 million people to the NHS's website, for example. And you might have just seen last week, we launched, together with the NHS, Facebook and the NHS frames. So you can put on your Facebook profile that you've either had the vaccine or you're gonna have the vaccine. So just this sense of actually a kind of communal, we're in this together, we're doing it together, we're working together to get us to that point where we are hopefully having quite a different April, May, June, July than we may have had last year. So that's been the big focus for us. Like, how can we directly support government on those aspects? And of course, the other big part of this is helping businesses. Businesses large and small, but particularly small businesses. And in fact, there are over 2 million small businesses who use our platforms in the UK alone to be able to sell within the UK and actually beyond the UK and export. So how can we help them develop the skills, the knowledge, and the capabilities to enable them to in some cases survive, and get through this, and in other cases really thrive and make that pivot towards kind of online commerce. Now, we know that people really like to shop online. We know that people like to discover. In particular, that's the role that Facebook plays in commerce and shopping, where people discover new products that they wouldn't necessarily know. Many of them coming from businesses in their community. So it can be businesses large and small. Now, last year we developed, and this is a product developed by the engineers who are based in the UK. We have about 4,500 people here in the UK that work at Facebook. And people are often surprised to hear that it's as big as that, but it's our largest engineering center outside of the US. Now, they create the product called Facebook Shops, which is effectively the back end to enable every single business in the UK, regardless of their size, to be able to set up an online store, an online shop via their Facebook page. It's proven to be really, really successful, and has been, you can imagine just how critical that's been for many organizations when the only way we could buy, or the only way that could bring us their products was online. That's been a real success. The next step of that in Facebook Shop is effectively bringing all of those Facebook shops into one place, into a dedicated destination on Facebook that we really hope is going to be great for businesses and also great for people as well. Because in the same way that your newsfeed is curated with the goal of bringing you the things that are most valuable and most important to you, and there are over 3,000 Facebook groups dedicated to in a way, the kind of the local economy, and there are 3.5 million people as part of those groups. So it does show that people really want to discover and understand more about their local areas, as well as products from around the world and around the UK as well. I mean, it's a huge question, this, and actually a really exciting one. So let me give you the really honest answer about am I looking forward to it. I've really missed being with team and the people I work with, for sure. But I think, like all of us, are thinking, well, is it going to be the same? Do we need to think, is this given us a real pause for thought about what does the future of work look like? Does it have to be one way or another? And I think the answer is probably going to be no. And what at Facebook, what we want to be is, we want to be right at the forefront of what the future of work looks like. And last year we made an announcement that we predict that more than, or that the half of the people that work for Facebook within the next 5 to 10 years are going to be doing that remotely, like fully remotely. Then there's also going to be hybrid ways of working, where people are now at home and office, and we're working that through and seeing what that might look like over time. I am looking forward to being with people. There is nothing like it as well, but equally, I think with every company, I think there's going to be an expectation that you innovate on this and you do think differently. And there are some huge advantages to this as well. There are big advantages from a perspective of inclusion. Actually, why, if prospects are only limited to certain geographies, actually having a more open, remote-based workforce, that really opens up opportunities for people and opportunities for companies to have a more inclusive, the most inclusive workforce that's possible. We think that's really key to innovation. I think kind of first and foremost, to recognize that many of us have been through this kind of extraordinary, from a technology perspective, we've been through this extraordinary time of forced experimentation. And that means that many people, for the very first time in their lives, have ordered their groceries online for the very first time. People have made a purchase online for the very first time. Ministers have held their services, on Facebook Live to their congregation for the very first time. So we've seen this incredible levels of experimentation that have taken place, where people have adopted technologies in a way that has never seen before. And if I look at that from a commerce perspective, there's some very incredible figures here. We've really seen 15 years of innovation happen in 9 months. And what I mean by that is the UK has always been actually the leading e-commerce country in the world as a share of total retail. So the UK was 15%, and then it got to 20% of a total amount of retail that takes place. That would be e-commerce rather than kind of physical commerce or kind of omni-channel. The best estimate I've seen, or the lowest estimate I've seen, is that that's at 30% now. And actually, if you take grocery out of that, it looks more like 40 to 45% of total retail is now e-commerce. So that's, given that it was growing at about 1.5% share a year, you can see why that really is a decade has occurred within the 9 months in the world of business. And it's been extraordinary seeing how companies have responded and reacted, both large and small, to that, but in particular the small businesses. They've been so impressively resilient in their pivoting. And what we found is that small businesses that are using platforms like ours, over half of them have said it's been indispensable in getting them through the pandemic. And then within that, many of them have been able to, those that are growing have been able to create new jobs. And that's really where where we see the biggest impact we can make, is like how are we able to protect existing jobs, look for businesses to be able to operate really efficiently and effectively to enable them to grow more jobs and then enhance their community. So that's, in a way, that's the commerce side, and that's a very big part of that. And then the second one I point to is. And this one's really hard to unpick, if I'm honest, but just the sense of community that's come from the last 9 months, that sense of connection. And I think in all honesty, this might sound strange coming from someone that works at a technology company, but let's hope 6 months or a year from now, we are spending a bit less time on screens and a lot more time, with the people that we love and care for. And I think those things we can see. But I'm really interested to see what happens to those connections that we've made with the people around us. So if you have been in, particularly people, if you're in a city and, you may have walked past your neighbor's house or some flats and you just didn't know those people. But that's not been the case for the last 9 months. They've been in your community WhatsApp group. They've been the people that have been telling you that the eggs are back in stock in Londis, or, helping you get your medicine, or they've done that. So whilst I think the technology might evolve, I don't want to sound like I'm being overly, naively optimistic, but I do hope, and perhaps we can all hope, that those community ties and connections prove to be sustaining themselves after we're out of lockdown.